I can't believe that after more than 20 years, it's come to that time.
No! God, please, no! No!
Time for the last edition of the Mission Impossible franchise and end to a great run from Tom Cruise in espionage. Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning is the culmination of all previous Mission Impossible films. I love all the films that Tom Cruise is in, except Vanilla Sky, because it's just too cringe for me, and Mission Impossible is the only franchise that Tom Cruise has besides Top Gun.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Tom Cruise is literally in his 60s and he gives his best in every installment of the franchise and does his own stunts too. You kind of have to wonder, when is he really going to slow down as an actor? So I went ahead and looked up the films that Cruise will be in, and I could see that there were about 9 motion pictures that are in production or in pre-production that Tom Cruise is involved in. So no, Tom Cruise is definitely not taking it slow anytime soon, because some of these films are pretty crazy when you look them up. And I'll be honest, one film actually involves NASA and SpaceX. And I read it, and it actually states that Tom Cruise wants to film scenes of the movie in space, the actual outer space. So that is super crazy. I don't know if there's a safety guy for that one. That's one of the things that they have in projects that they have. It's completely nuts, but it's something that he wants to do. Tom Cruise is always taking films to the next edition. That's what I've noticed. He's like the most famous actor. So, let's go into the film, and yes, there are spoilers. So the film starts with Ethan Hunt receiving a message from the US President, and we get to see a montage of all the missions that Ethan has been involved in during the entire franchise, and also to remind the viewers of all the great memories of watching the films too. Ethan meets up with Grace to find the Sevastopol submarine, but get captured by Gabriel, who wants to get in the good books with the entity or control it himself. This is actually where we find out that the rabbit's foot from the third Mission Impossible film was actually the entity all along.
What?
That's a good way to tie it back to the previous film. That's not the only surprise that we get, but also old characters return to this final installment and also relations to past enemies. So this is a massive reunion to the closing of the Mission Impossible franchise. So Ethan only wants to destroy the entity and prevent anyone else from controlling it, and loses friends along the way. Normally we don't see a member of Ethan's team die off, but in Dead Reckoning, Ethan lost his teammate and love interest Elsa Faust. And now in the Final Reckoning, Ethan loses Luther, a teammate and longtime friend.
Shit.
Yes, it is.
This ain't funny.
Ethan is then brought before the heads of all the intelligence agencies in the US and the President, and they basically explain all of Ethan's achievements and that the entity is on the verge of destroying the world, and the President then tasks Ethan to stop the entity in only 3 days. So the mission just got even more impossible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Because the Russians are also trying to get their hands on the entity, they have deployed all these submarines in the Bering Sea to scout for the lost wreckage of the submarine. Now, the submarine is actually the vessel the entity was installed on, and the only way for Ethan to get to the wreckage is to dive in the coldest waters on Earth, and also avoid being spotted by other submarines, or they might start World War III. So the mission gets even more impossible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Ethan eventually makes it to the wreckage and finds the entity, but has to flee the submarine as soon as possible because it's actually rolling off a seabed cliff. So it's a seabed, but it's actually a cliff. So basically, it's going to fall further down. Okay, and he decides to escape via a torpedo tube. This is actually the most tense part of the film, as Ethan is in the Bering Sea, which is super cold, and also he is kilometers underwater with intense pressure and low temperatures too. So you get to witness for about 20 minutes or 15 one of the most quietest parts of the movie, and also most tense because it's just Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt navigating through the ocean and, of course, the submarine. Ethan suffers from the worst effects of deep sea diving because of the cold temperatures and intense pressure, and not to mention he's swimming up. Our hero still survives, luckily, but the mission is not done yet. In fact, it just got a whole lot more impossible.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not.
They have to trap the entity in an experimental storage device, and let's just call it a futuristic USB, okay? And they only have a split-second window to trap it there and save the world. But they have to give the entity's device to Gabriel, the device that actually has the source code of the entity, because Gabriel wants to use the entity for his own agenda. And then they have to steal the entity's devices back from Gabriel after they have trapped it in the futuristic USB. It's just so much in this movie that they have to do, and so much exposition to explain to the audience what's actually happening. And just like that, this mission just got a whole lot more impossible.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not.
Ethan and his team do achieve these feats, and they save the world from nuclear destruction. So the mission was not that impossible at all. The film ends with Ethan and his team confirming with the audience that the entity is still stored in the futuristic USB, and Ethan will be its caretaker. And the team all disappear into the crowd, and that's the end of the movie. Anyway, now, time for the rant. Okay? So, this film was really long, but I am okay with it as this is the final film to the franchise of Mission Impossible. But I'm sure other viewers would say it was a whole lot longer than it should have been. If you're in a cinema and you add the ads, it's going to be about 3 hours. Okay? There was also so many things that they had to do in the film. So many MacGuffins. We need this. We need to be there. We need to have this in order for that. A lot of dialogue to explain to the audience what was the next step of the scenes that everybody was going to watch. Tom Cruise does a whole lot more running in this film, and he's so fast that he can run down anyone. The film begins with everybody running, and it's just crazy to see. Tom is running, Gabriel character's running, the bounty hunter chick is running, even the former agent, he's running as well. Everybody is just running through corridors. It's insane. No way could any human survive the ice-cold waters of the Bering Sea with only their underwear, okay? Because that's what Ethan had on after he escaped from the submarine, because he couldn't take his scuba gear with him. And not to mention, he was a few miles down on the seabed, and he decides to swim up on one breath, no scuba gear, but I guess, lots of plot armor, that actually works. The entity who was a boss in Dead Reckoning, I mean, nobody could keep a secret from the entity, but in the final Reckoning, the entity can't even get ahead of Ethan's team. I mean, why would the entity wait until it can acquire all the nuclear missiles in the world, giving Ethan and his team more time to foil its plans from launching a nuclear strike on the entire human population? My next point, or basically my suggestion, if the entity was really so smart and boss level, after acquiring even 50% of the world's nuclear arsenal and launching all of it, you could do irreparable damage to the entire world, because the other countries would also launch their arsenal too. And there goes the human population. That could have been the plan of the entity all along, but no, the entity wanted all the arsenals for itself. Next point. Gabriel, the villain, does die in the film, but only because he flew into the rear wing of the plane and hit his head. It was like an accident. It wasn't even planned that way by Ethan. So if that did not happen, and Gabriel jumped safely from the airplane, Ethan would not have completed the mission, or he would have had to jump off the plane and go after Gabriel. But that's actually not what happened. Gabriel died right there as soon as he let go of the strap. It was so anticlimactic. The way the film ends is not a bad ending, but it is with the whole team disappearing into the crowd, and it's almost as if this is not the last film. It's not the last time we will see them. If the producers or the executives really wanted to make more money from this franchise, like they do with every other franchise, they will probably do another film because of the way the film ends. It's like an open ending. Wow, this rant was just as long as the film itself. But thank you for viewing and reviewing with me. That's my rant. Bye.